still feeling it out.
Exactly. So he would tell me, push it, and to push harder and to try new things. So he would tell me, again, walk up to that person at the event, or walk up to that girl you're interested in, or make that ask to the client, because every no is going to be closer to one yes.
I'm so excited that you're here today. You found your way to Entrepreneur Unleashed. It's a channel that's really been dedicated to helping you learn vicariously through the struggles and triumphs of other business owners in all different walks of life, all different industries, and all different stages of their entrepreneurial career. My name is Edward Collins, and I'm the founder of Uplevel Entrepreneur and a serial entrepreneur at that. 7 businesses in my pocket at the moment, on my journey to 100. We'll see how fast I can get there. But before then, what we're doing today is I'm joined in the studio by Brett Kaufman. He's an amazing copywriter, a genius when it comes to copy. He's also a salsa dancer and a ropes course aficionado. And we're so lucky to have him in the studio today. We're going to be talking a little bit about his entrepreneurial journey. And I know, I'm 100% confident that you're going to get a significant amount of value out of it. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to jump right in. Brett, thank you so much for coming in today. I appreciate you being willing to share your story with our audience and just get to know you better.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And your studio is just gorgeous. You built something magnificent here, and it's been really nice getting to know you in this time.
Yeah, it's definitely been a work in progress. Still some things here and there to do. But again, the whole purpose of this ecosystem is really to give opportunity for others to learn about the struggles that business owners go through. I mean, and you've been doing business for a long time. I've been doing business for a long time, and there's definitely ups and downs along the way. And I know that business owners can get discouraged, and this is an opportunity for them to learn. You know what? Everyone goes through it, and there is an opportunity to get through to the other side.
That is true, and also, you still always go through it. I always thought there was you hit a certain level and you're like, I got it. Your mindset's perfect. Everything's easy. And you're crushing it. I'm sure there's still moments where you're like, is this maybe fall apart or whatever? It always happens. And that gave me comfort knowing you're never going to not go through that.
Yeah. And I think that that statement in and of itself is the truth. I mean, everyone wants to get to that end level. I mean, we live in this Instagram world where perfect filters, perfectly choreographed photographs and videos. Even this video that people are going to be watching, or the audio that they're listening to it on whether they're driving their car or whatever, it's going to sound great. It's going to but that's after the edit. I mean, we're going to, obviously this is one take. We don't really go back and forth, but there's still some perfection and fine tuning that happens to the end product. But the reality is our journey is complicated. It's long and winding. There are ups and there are downs, but it's worth it. Yeah. Right? So Brett, I want to get to know more about you. Obviously, we're starting to get to know each other. We're involved in a couple different organizations together, but I want to know more about your backstory. So before we get into where you are today, what was the young Brett like?
I got into a lot of trouble, and I think that's what makes me good at what I do, because I was very good at talking my way out of things. So sorry, Mom and Dad. When I was little, I actually never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. It was none of that was in my mind. I enjoyed playing sports. I was a normal upbringing, but I always was very creative. And maybe because growing up, I didn't have an abundance of friends. So I would make the most elaborate, pretend war games, or have mess around in my backyard with pretending I was reenacting famous battle scenes. So from a young age, I remember my mind being super active and imagining things. And I think that's super important now, because everything we do has to come from creativity.
100%.
So when I was little, the first Star Wars movie came out, meaning the first, number one, not the first one ever came out.
Okay.
And young Anakin Skywalker had a rat tail.
Oh.
And I grew a rat tail because he was a Jedi, and therefore I thought if I had a rat tail, I would be a Jedi as well.
Jedi. Okay.
Unfortunately, I did not become a Jedi, and I was very disappointed. But from a young age, kind of talking about mindset, I got made fun of so much for having that.
Okay.
And so I guess I learned resilience then. But from a young age, I was always how do I be like that person? I guess I was starting to model even when I was 6 without even knowing what that meant.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So where did you grow up?
In technically a town called Columbia, Maryland, but sandwiched in between Baltimore and DC.
Okay. And like, how was school for you when you were growing up? Like, did you like school? Didn't like school?
Not really. It's funny because my dad is brilliant and he has that logical engineering brain. He can build anything. So I could have been the next Einstein for him, but none of it clicked for me.
Okay.
So we'd get on all these fights and battles because I didn't want to go to school. I didn't pay attention. I was just good at talking my way through things. And I think that got me in a lot of trouble, but also it was good.
Okay. When you look at the school experience from an academic standpoint, like what did you find most challenging about that? Like,
paying attention.
Just paying attention.
Yeah, I would sit in class and I would try to pay attention, but my mind would wander.
I find that a lot of entrepreneurs fall into that category because we're almost like driven to do things beyond the norm. And the classroom is about the norm.
Yeah.
The classroom is about, here, you sit in this box, you sit at this desk, you do this at this time, but entrepreneurs don't always do that. I mean. No.
And I was exposed from a young age. I actually studied abroad in high school for 2 months.
Okay.
So I got the travel bug at 17 was the first time, I myself left the country and lived in Israel.
Okay.
For 2 months. So as soon as that got into my mind of you don't have to be on that quote unquote traditional path, everything was unleashed.
You just,
it was
it's unburdened. So what was the transition like out of high school? Where did you go to school after? Did you go to school after that?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
My mom still makes fun of me for it because I was supposed to apply to 6 schools and have your safety school. I went on this trip called Alexander Muss High School in Israel when I was 17.
Okay.
It was a 2-month high school study abroad in Israel.
Okay.
And it wasn't a religious trip, but you learn a story from the Torah and go to the spot where it took place and reenact it. So talk about, the imagery we were saying earlier. And I fell in love. And I was like, oh my God, I got to make Aliyah, which means moving to Israel, all that stuff. And so naturally when I came home, I was only obsessed with going back to Israel. So I barely applied to schools. I went to Towson, which is outside Baltimore. And my first year at college, I ended up going back abroad to Israel my second year for my sophomore year.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't have that traditional, applying to a bunch of schools and then going to this university. And
you went to one that was close to home and then you went abroad.
Just because I wanted to go back to Israel as fast as humanly possible. I was like, I don't want to be here. I just want to go travel and see those things.
What was that experience like for you?
I remember the second time I went to Israel, I remember going there for a year and I didn't know anyone. And I loved it, that fear and that thrill of is this gonna work? And that was probably the best learning experience I ever had, which actually set me up to going into the first chapter of one of the darkest moments I've ever had in my life. So it's fascinating how you had such an incredible year, which led to such darkness that happened afterwards. But then the light, which we can talk about a little bit, came from what I learned in my sophomore year being there.
Wow.
That was really interesting.
We're definitely going to have to unpack that.
Okay.
So okay. You're abroad.
I'm abroad.
You're having an amazing experience.
Amazing experience.
You're at the pinnacle of your post high school years.
Yeah.
Just into your college years. Great time. But wait a minute. Darkness.
So I'll set the scene a little bit more. So my sophomore year, I was 19 and I'm living in Israel. And I'm in Tel Aviv, which is a super fun city. And naturally, most guys that are young professionals or college, if you want to get into a club, you either have to be quite wealthy or you have to be with abundance of women to get in. And I had neither at the time. And I wanted to enjoy. I was 19. I wanted to party. So I became a promoter in Tel Aviv, which was the funniest and just insane experience.
At 19, you became a promoter.
Yeah, and people, and it was funny, talk about direct mail, copywriting. I had to learn how to sell, but this was kind of like door knocking. So I'd walk up to people on the streets with flyers, come to the club, I'll get you in, all that stuff. And I would bring people from a university. Also, during that year, I got my first internship at a major incubator. So I got to experience business, fell in love with a girl, and then I rescued a dog. And I brought her home. Her name is Lila. Okay. Now she lives in Maryland, and my parents take care of her because I bit off way too much I could chew, as we'll talk about with the darkness. Okay. So I had this most monumentous year that I could have ever imagined at being 19.
Just the experience of it and everything.
Truly from 17 to 19, because I was abroad twice. And everything that I thought was normal was shifted because I just experienced a whole new world at a young age. So the darkness came from me returning to Towson my junior year and experiencing the biggest culture shock I've ever experienced in my life, to the point I fell into a super deep state of depression. And that's where the darkness started, which we can get into if you want.
Yeah. So obviously you're going from an environment that's hustle and bustle. It's Tel Aviv, like rambunctious, like amazing adventures, and then back to Towson.
Yeah, back to just normal university.
And that basically threw you into a depression.
Yeah, well, it was two things. It was because I became so passionate about just my background as being Jewish and a Zionist. When I came home, it was during the first recent war in 2014 between Israel and Hamas, a terrorist organization. I felt helpless. I felt like I couldn't do anything.
Right.
And so my depression actually led me to forgetting how to speak for a little bit of time.
Really?
And this depression got so dark that in a messed up game of Clue, I chose the date, I chose how, and I chose like the weapon of my suicide.
Oh my goodness.
And fortunately, from an angel or his inner voice, I checked myself into therapy. And I started going to therapy. But forgetting how to speak brought me into copywriting.
Help me to understand what you mean by forgetting, like literally forgetting how to speak, or are you just talking about not being able to put real good sentences together?
There was a period of time where I could felt like the Tin Man, and my mouth was just cemented shut.
Wow.
And I would try really hard to get things out, and I'd be sitting in class, and there would just be like these voices going back and forth. And if anyone's experienced like that darkness, like I've heard this from other people, you have this voice, like it's like sweeter and sweeter to you, but it's telling you like to do bad things. And there would just be shouting matches in my head. And I would try to communicate to tell people how I was feeling, but I couldn't. So I started to walk around with a notebook. And that's how I got into writing, because I would start writing out what I was trying to say to you. So sometimes I'd be like, help me, or like, I need this. And like, I would show you my notebook.
That could be really powerful for other people who are going through this too. I mean, the fact that you used a tool because you couldn't communicate verbally with people. Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, it was that, and there was this book, which I'm sure you've read, if not, definitely on your list, called Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr.
Yes.
Yes, fantastic.
I know it, yes.
And so for those that don't know, Dr. Maxwell Maltz, incredible plastic surgeon, and he was one of the first people, your thoughts affect your speech and your actions. So that's what started to get me out of it, because I was like, okay. And I would start just to say 3 positive things before I went to bed. My shoes look cool, like I had a haircut, and like, I walked today because I could barely do anything.
Sort of on the affirmation side of the spectrum.
Because I just had to do something, had to get some positivity flowing through me.
Okay.
But that depression was like 6 months of just like sheer like darkness. Like,
wow.
Yeah. It sucked.
So, I mean, I've never had to go through that, so I can't empathize. But I do know people who have gone through that. And for 6 months, that's a significantly long period of time. I know that there are people, obviously, who go through challenging times much, much longer duration, no matter what, whether it's a second or 6 months or 10 years. That's not fun to go through. But you made it through.
Thank God, yeah.
And what would you say, like, what was the was it the communicating by the notebook and sharing that information with people? Was that what helped? Was it the combination with the therapy? Like, what was it that you think got you through that time?
I had a great support system, which was awesome. It was the writing. So what I started to do was I would model the best speakers and writers. And actually at the time I took like a dating course because I wanted to, just improve myself. And the guy that was leading it was saying like, study characters that you want to be like. So Tony Stark, like at the time it could be like Hank Moody, just people that embodied what you wanted at the time I was 21, that what you wanted to be at a 21-year-old. But point being was I would rehearse what they would say because I didn't like the version of Brett that I was, but I liked the version of Tony Stark when I was watching Tony Stark.
Okay.
So I stopped being Brett and tried to become Tony.
You modeled his behavior, his attitude, his persona.
And so it was combination of that, combination of writing, and then I went to group therapy, which was so interesting because you were in a room and you weren't allowed to talk to each other outside of the room. Like that was like if you did, you get kicked out. And in the circle, you weren't allowed to give each other advice.
Okay.
So it was like a appropriate game of one-upping each other. Of like, if you thought cutting yourself was bad, I tried drinking bleach, and it's like I tried putting a gun in my mouth. It was like, in being in that room, I was like, oh my God, maybe I'm not as bad as I thought I was. So it's kind of interesting, like going through that. So that was kind of like being aware of what other people are going through made me feel like I wasn't, I guess, as bad, not to take away from.
It adds perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's trauma is their trauma. So, and their journey through darkness is horrible, regardless of what it is. But it helped put it into perspective for you.
It gave me hope.
Okay.
Which was great. And then the final thing was stop feeling like I was not a burden on my family and friends that were really like helping me during that time, because you feel guilty. You don't want to be the sad one.
Right.
So, and actually the final thing was tying it into passion. So this actually led me into my first job. Was during this time, my junior year, when I started to come out of it, I was obsessed with pro-Israel politics.
Okay.
Because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to be able to help, like my home country, Israel. I'm born in the United States, but every Jew is from Israel. And so I would start skipping class to go to DC to go lobby on Capitol Hill.
Wow. And
I remember the one time my communications professor, I asked him if I could move the test. And again, I got in a lot of trouble growing up. So I asked the communication professor if I could move the test. He was like, no, you can't. And I'm like, if you don't let me go to Capitol Hill, Iran's going to get a nuclear weapon and they're going to blow up America because you wouldn't let me skip it. He was like, slow down, but I understand where you're coming from. Fine. And I was just like, that was my ticket out. So I would wake up at 5 a.m., take the train down in DC, work on Capitol Hill, like intern on both sides of the aisle.
Wow.
Go to members of Congress office, like lobby for or against legislation they were pushing out. And like that became my thing, on the radio talking about it. Like that got me out.
You actually went on the radio to talk about your views on politics.
Yeah.
As a junior and a senior.
Yeah, I was like 21, 22 at this point. Yeah.
Wow.
And this was during the height of the Iran deal negotiations.
Yes.
So, I mean, what did I know at that age? But I was like, I felt like I could really, like, that felt like my way of making a difference. And I started being a part of the student movement of an organization called APAC, which ended up being my first job.
Okay.
And that opened up everything for me.
So that's where we were talking about earlier, pinnacle down into darkness and back into light.
Yeah.
So what was that first job? Like, tell me more about that. Like, what did you do? How did it impact you?
So APAC is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee.
Okay.
A bipartisan pro-Israel lobby. So
okay.
Both sides of the aisle.
Okay. Its
entire job is to strengthen the U.S. and Israel's relationship.
Okay.
There's a lot of devices, medical technology, like your phone, the chip is made in Israel. A lot of medical, a lot of defense shared between the countries. So it's good for anyone that's not just,
right.
Jewish. And that job, I was a fundraiser. And so I would pick up the phone and cold call 100 people a day. And I'd get them to sit down with me and ask them for gifts between $1,800 to $100,000 first time meeting me.
Wow.
You don't even really get a tax write-off unless you give like the $100,000 level. You don't really get anything in return besides like feeling good about it. But that taught me sales. That taught me persuasion. And that taught me better writing sales copy, because I was sending a lot of texts and emails. I got a lot of meetings back.
Okay. Yeah. I talk about what I refer to as the client curation process, where you're basically cultivating an audience, and then you're converting that audience into interested prospects, and then ultimately closing them into paying customers, paying clients. You are building your expertise now in the closing end of the spectrum, meaning that sales process. What would you say, what was the most monumental thing you learned around that topic in this position, in this role you were serving? I
think it would be, it's not a no until you hear them say no.
Okay.
Obviously, be respectful.
Oh, absolutely.
But oftentimes we stop ourselves from making the ask, whether it's seeing a beautiful girl you want to talk to, whether it's a business prospect. Like, you stop yourself from introducing yourself or following up with someone because you think they're not going to be interested.
And why do you think people do that? Like, why do we stop ourselves?
It could be several things. Not belief in the actual product that you're selling.
Okay. Not
belief in yourself is the bigger one. And I have several mentors. One of my mentors said, it's unethical for you not to sell to that person. Again, respectfully, the idea is if you know you can solve their problem, it's unethical for you not to follow up and be like, hey, I can help you.
I fundamentally agree. Yeah. I think that if you know what you are doing will truly change the life of the person you're interacting with for the better, you have a moral obligation to share it with them, to a point where the only reason, like for instance, like one of my mentors, this is a long time ago, told me that price is always going to be, if price is the objection, it's always your fault because you did not do what you need to do to demonstrate the value. Because something is only expensive in the absence of the value it offers. Correct. So the fact that you've learned that, now you're 21, 22 years old, 22, 23, something like that?
Now I'm like 23 in that time period. Yeah.
So you're learning a hugely valuable skill set at such a young age. What did you do with that skill set then? Like what did you go and what was the evolution like?
For a long time, I never wanted to leave APAC. I loved it. I raised about $3 million in about 3 years when I was there. And I loved it. I loved the mission. I loved the impact. They promoted me out to Chicago, which is great. And that's where things started to a little bit fall apart. Only because that I wasn't put in the best, maybe I didn't ask the right way, but felt like I wasn't put in the best position for my skill set to be utilized. Which was, again, finding new money, bringing in new people to the organization.
Being the rainmaker, if you will.
Yeah, because my program was new at the time. We were only the third class, so I get it. Things had to shift. But I remember specifically this moment, before I got promoted out, there was about 3 months before I had to go out to Chicago. And I asked my new boss at the time, hey, can I take off like 6 weeks? I want to go back to Israel. I want to do something, and then I'm going to come back, and we're good. And my contract in Fort Lauderdale at the time expired, so I had this gap of time. He said, no, I need you up there early. And I was pissed because I was like, I technically have this gap of time. I don't need to be up there.
I want to make sure I didn't miss something.
Yeah.
How did you get to when you said Fort Lauderdale?
That's where my first job was. So
you were down in Fort Lauderdale for it, and then you went up to Chicago.
Correct. Sorry. And I was really mad because that was a time I recognized that someone can control my life, meaning a boss. And I bought a course on email marketing. And I was like, I gave myself a year. I'm like, I'm never going to let someone tell me I can or can't do something because they're my boss. And I was like, I can give myself a year to master email marketing. And I'm going to quit, and I'm just going to figure it out after that. So so that's what I ended up doing. I was in Chicago for a year. And then as soon as the year mark came up, I was like, we're out.
Here's my resignation. And I already have my plan B in the works. So you started email marketing.
So while I was working normal hours, and then after work, I would just be like going to networking events or like pitching people and be like, hey, I can close for you and whatnot. So like sales closing and emails.
But you were doing this on your own, like independent, your own, at this point, maybe company? Did you start a company, or were you just doing it?
It's
like
just me.
Freelancing?
Freelancing, yeah, exactly. And I was at a conference now in December of 2017, I think it was, where I met one of my business partners. And we were, funny enough, we were in a club, which is the greatest place to meet a business partner.
Yeah, right.
And it was like the last night, and him and I were talking. When you just like click with someone, like similar values.
Totally get it.
And we were like, I was like, oh, let's do this thing together. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. But like, you kind of say it like, let's grab coffee, but don't really mean it. A few weeks later, when we agreed to do stuff together, not thinking it was actually going to happen, I ended up closing a client I couldn't fulfill on. So I call him. I'm like, hey, like I actually need your help now. Him and I started together in about 2018. So as I was finishing my time at APAC, him and I started working with clients together. I would do the phone sales. He would do all the copywriting.
All the actual fulfillment.
Yeah. And then I would also do some of the copywriting, but he was the main driver behind it. And then we just started picking up clients that way. And then it started snowballing. And then when I quit, I just moved home. And this is now 2019, right before.
And when you say home, you're talking about Fort Lauderdale?
Sorry, home to Baltimore.
Yeah.
So, and then that's how the time was called By Us Copywriting. Now we're Wellspring Media. But that's when I went full time, was in the fall of 2019.
So fall 2019, you create a brand new business. At the time, it was called By Right Media?
By Us Copywriting.
By Us Copywriting. What were those founding moments like? Those first few months of business?
Terrifying.
Right.
More terrifying for him. Like, shout out to Yoga, because he has bigger kahunas than I do sometimes. Because we were making $10K together. And he decided to move to New York. Yeah,
Wait a minute. Wait, no way.
Yeah, and he was just like, he's like, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm like, I'm living at home, like I'm good. Like I need what, $500 a month? Everything's taken care of. He was like, no, we're good. We're gonna figure it out. So he pushed me on overcoming like scarcity around mindset and that stuff, because he's literally doing that. But the founding moments were absolutely terrifying because you have all the belief in yourself, but you're like, can I actually do this?
What was the most terrifying thing though about it? Like, what was the scariest part of jumping into this venture with him?
I think it was that I would have to go back to my job with my tail between my legs after being like, pounding my chest. And obviously I left respectfully, but like, I got this, like, you're filled with ego and testosterone. Yes. Like, I can do this thing. I think that was the most scary part.
Okay. Now, what was the most challenging thing for the two of you together in business those first few months?
It was understanding like what exactly that we offered, because copywriting is an all-encompassing word. It's like sales. Yeah. And so it was like crafting the offer. How do we stand out? How do we market ourselves? And so it was like a challenge. Also, I still working on, I have a huge money scarcity mindset. And this is something that I constantly work on. So, I operated so much out of fear. And because I was operating out of fear, it was a challenge because I couldn't think the right way and I couldn't make the right long-term vision planning.
Let's unpack this a bit. Let's talk about the offer environment. How did you go about creating your initial offer, and how did that evolve over time?
The initial offer came from, I think, us just pitching so many people and hearing what they needed and not needed. Okay. And then eventually we were like, oh, we do A, B, and C.
Do you remember what that A, B, and C was?
It was, the first offer was give us 20% of anything that's closed, because I'll do all the phone closing. Yoga will write all the email copy.
Okay. So you were basically... Were you doing the setting as well, or were you just doing the closing?
The time was just inbound.
Inbound.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're handling inbound marketing and inbound leads, calling in. You were essentially going through this process of getting them on the phone, talking them through what they've already seen in email copy ahead of time. What was the end result of that offer? Like, was that a successful offer? Did you see challenges? Like, what was the issue?
So we were fortunate in that we just rode with like 3 clients for a while that we were just like their guys to doing all that. And so it was a lot of referral based.
Okay.
Yeah, which worked out well. And what ended up not saving us, like leveling us up, was we cold pitched a very seasoned copywriter in the space. His name is John Romanello. Okay. And at first it was just for coaching. And then John, for whatever reason, liked us well enough to say, let's partner together. Okay. So then, so to speak, we kind of like leveled up in credibility, because now
you're associated. It's about credentials, right?
So we took equity with him. Exactly. And then we launched a copywriting course. And then from there, things like at first it was like, oh, you're John's guys, but then we built our own.
Okay, when you say you launched a course, help me again. A lot of business owners get a little bit concerned because they only know one way to do things. You're now talking about, one, you were doing the done for you service. Right. Now you're switching to the education service, right? So tell me a little bit about that transition.
So we still did both. Okay. The whole idea was John had a massive following. Okay. But he hasn't monetized it in a long time. Okay. So he was like, guys, if you create this course with me, I'll give you a % of it. Right. And then we had an upsell of, we'll do done with you or done for you on the back end. On the back end. But at the same time, I'm still pitching people for done for you. This was supposed to be meant to just bring more awareness and low-hanging fruit, people that are already interested in us. But for anyone that's listening about how to figure out the right offer, you just got to pitch a ton of people and hear exactly what they're saying and why they did not buy from you, and then write down the reasons why they didn't buy, see where the tweaks are, look at your competition and what they're offering, and then that's how we started tweaking. Oh, the person doesn't need this, they actually need that. And then my next pitch, I use that new element that I picked up from my research, from my data. That's how we refined everything.
I think that's extremely important, because I think, again, a lot of business owners, because we live in this Instagram world, they only see the end result that we post online. They don't understand that there is actually a journey that's involved, and it's actually hard work. Yeah. Like I get so frustrated because I hear the phrase a lot, like, you want to work hard. You don't want to work hard, you want to play hard. Yeah. Like, work hard, no. Work smart, yes. But the reality is, it's all hard work. Yeah. You have to put in the effort. You have to put in the time. You have to put in the the back and forth, and again, like you said, pitch, get feedback, iterate, pitch again, get feedback, iterate, go all over and over again. And it's the compounding effect over time that actually leads to the results you want. So tell me, like, what was that? Like, this was in 2019 into 2020. Mm-hmm. So you're going through this process with now not only your original business partner, but now you have another business partner that you're engaging in the education side of the spectrum on. What was the end result of that? Tell me a little bit about that process.
So it was actually taking a step back to give context to, I went back to Israel from 2020, January 1st to right when the world shut down. I got the last flight out of Israel. I had to go through Istanbul, and then I went to Istanbul to DC, and we found out that day that Turkey was closing their borders. That was a terrifying moment because
oh my goodness,
they're not always the friendliest to me. Yes. So therefore, I was like, let's probably get out of this country. I can't really blend in well with my skin color, anyways. But when I was there during those 3 months, I was studying in yeshiva, like a Torah study facility. Okay, living in a cave. At the time.
Wow.
Studying Torah for 8 hours a day and then working on my business for the other 8 hours a day. So I was exhausted, but...
Hey guys, I hope you were really enjoying this episode. It's a lot of great information. Before we go any further though, I want to share with you something we just released. It's our brand new Tax Express class. And in it, I'm walking you through strategies that can help you outsmart the IRS by taking advantage of the tax loopholes available to LLCs and S-Corps, and even just general businesses here in the United States that can help you cut thousands and thousands of dollars off of your tax bill every single year. You're not going to want to miss it, and the link is in the description below. Now, let's get back to the episode.
I think that seeded, like, you can do it regardless of the time that you have, because a lot of this, as you know, is perseverance.
Yes.
But I would be on, like, so a lot of the relics, if you ever go to Israel, are like 2,000 years old. And the cave that I was living in was 2,000 years old, and I'd be on top of the roof doing sales calls.
Oh my goodness.
While the call to worship.
No, wait, I have to picture this for a second. You're sitting on the top of a cave.
Yeah.
With a phone, making sales calls.
With terrible reception too. It was like, and it was funny. It's like you could hear the call to worship for the Dome of the Rock in front of me. I could hear Jews praying at the Kotel, the Western Wall, and the church bells of the Holy Church. Like I'm living in Jerusalem, in the old city. And I'm on sales calls. People are like, what is that? And I'm like, no, ignore it. Anyways, tell me about your problem with this. Trying to close people, but I think that made me good because, like, you have to close in any environment.
Right.
You can't be, it's the weather, it's my phone, it's this. No,
there is no excuse.
There's no excuse.
Just keep going.
Yeah. And I always thought that was just so funny. I actually closed better then than I think historically because of the scarcity of time and the weirdness that the environment that you're in to do it in. But
that's an amazing adventure. I mean, so again, I'm still imagining you sitting on top of a cave and trying to get cell phone reception and going through that process. So you made it back to the U.S. This is now like March, April of 2020.
Correct,
2020. What did you jump into once you got back to the States?
Then we connected with John.
Okay, that's when you connected with him.
The course launched in July of 2020. And then everything just kept iterating after that. So we had the course, which made us good money, and then clients from there. And and then it just we kept pitching people from that point to get more done for you clients.
I talk a lot about, specifically with business owners who have never gotten involved in online at all.
Yeah.
I talked about this concept of productizing, if you will, your knowledge.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what you did. You took your skill set on the done for you side of the spectrum, and you just translated that into some sort of course material. Was that live course? Was it a recorded course? Like what was that structure?
That it was recorded.
Okay.
Yeah, we did the webinar the first time that was live, but it was recorded.
Okay.
And it was like, because he was so recognized already, so that's why I'm now realizing the brand is so important.
Brand is critical.
Because people will buy because they like you, your personality and all that.
Yeah, I think if you look at the universe, I mean, realistically, you have billions of people on the planet, 7 billion. You don't need all of them. You need the ones that are the ones that resonate with you. Correct. Like I particularly resonate with individuals who are freedom-loving entrepreneurs and all senses of that word freedom, whether it's they want the financial freedom that entrepreneurialism can bring, But they also like the concept of freedom from government intervention and taxation and things of that nature. So that's who I resonate with well. But finding your avatar, finding the individuals that you resonate with well, you went through that process. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that journey for you.
I had to become comfortable sharing what I enjoyed, what I cared about, like my fears. And the more I started sharing about that, the more people were turned off and turned on. Mm-hmm. And that, like you just said, that's what's so key. I don't care if I want you to know that I'm not your person. I don't take offense to it.
100%.
Helps me know who to market to.
Exactly.
Brings down my ad costs. Like, it's perfect. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's good. You want to share your beliefs. The thing, though, is you have to be very respectful, because I don't like when people are like, screw anyone that doesn't like this. Yeah. It's like, relax. But
there's tact, but there's also authenticity.
Right.
So if you're your authentic self, connecting with other authentic individuals who resonate with you, that's where you can get to that next level.
Exactly.
So tell me about that next leveling for you. Like, after offering this course, what was the next step?
So the next step was really dialing in why we are one of the best copywriters around, specifically, because the next step was getting very specified, sales pages, emails, and SMS.
Okay.
So we wanted to be known to everyone that we're your guys for the optimizing of the back end of your funnel.
Okay.
You can go to this genius person for front-end acquisition. You come to Wellspring Media for the back end.
Okay. So now you've transitioned to the new name.
Yeah.
So again, I think it's really important, because not every business owner understands all the terminology that we use sometimes. Sure. So I like to unpack it sometimes. So talk a little bit about what a funnel is, and what the front end of the funnel and what the back end, so that they really can understand what you're talking about.
A funnel is a process that people can go through to buy from you.
Okay.
Front end is usually ads, organic. So they see something that gets them to go to another page.
Opt in, if you will.
Opt in.
Okay.
The back end is more, now that you already opted into it, what are you reading? And then what's the follow-up? Okay. We specialize in the follow-up because we write connection-based copy.
What does that mean?
So as a former bro marketer, and I'm glad I'm done with that world.
Okay.
It was great to learn, though, because you had to see it. Connection-based copy is exactly what you were saying earlier with being authentic and being aware that I don't need to push you to buy, because I know you're going to buy when you're ready. Mm-hmm. My job is to give you all the value, answer all your questions, and hold space for you to feel comfortable to buy from me. That's connection-based copy. That's why branding works so well now with personality-based entrepreneurs, because people are like, I get you, I relate to you, I feel safe with you. Connection-based copy is the exact same thing.
Okay. So when you look at again, now you're into 2021.
Yeah.
What was the pinnacle moments, if you will, throughout 2021 that have really gotten you to where you are today in 2022?
Ooh. Man, there's many things. One, I moved down to Miami.
Okay.
So leveled up my environment, and I like to joke that I moved down to in Miami when they gave us 2 months free on our first rent. That's how where we were in the pandemic.
Yeah, it doesn't exist right now. Not if you're coming to Miami, you're definitely not going to get that offer.
It was like before it was cool to come to Miami. I came down before. I started the pinnacle moment, and this is like my path to my first million is going to be through my network.
Okay.
I already set that intention. I already know that's going to be.
Okay.
Because when I can meet someone organically, it can be online too, but like I'm saying, when I can meet someone like we're doing now, I've been able to convert more people into clients because authenticity.
Exactly. You're a genuine individual. You speak true. Yeah. You speak real.
Yeah.
And you also, you have a great ability to communicate. So that actually gives you a leg up. Not everyone has that, though. Not every business owner has the skill sets of communication, but they shouldn't let that stop them. Right. Correct. So how can they get better at communicating?
So this is I think it's a little bit of like a sideways answer, but because I did a lot of reflection on this. I was at a conference in November, actually through our mutual friend, Melissa.
Okay.
This is the first time I met her. And she was like, do you want to come to this conference with me in Vegas? I'm like, sure, random lady, because I just met you.
Exactly.
Happy to. And on stage, Jesse Itzler spoke.
Not familiar with Jesse.
Okay. Great guy, great entrepreneur. I don't know exactly what he sells now, but basically it's kind of like be the best version of you.
Okay.
His wife is Sarah Blinkley.
That name sounds familiar.
Spanx.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, Jesse said this line that said, you need to scare the shit out of yourself at least once a year.
Okay.
And I believe I became a great communicator and becoming, because there's always room to grow, because I've scared the shit out of myself often this year. Can I dive into one of those?
Please.
So I've actually had 2 moments of darkness.
Okay.
One I'm still going through right now.
Okay.
So in the late half of 2021, I had the honor and privilege of going to Poland with a local organization named Yehudi down here. Okay. They're a great, just Jewish organization. And my family's originally from Israel, but after the Romans kicked us out, my family wandered and eventually settled in Eastern Europe, specifically Poland.
Okay.
So this is the first time I ever went, and we did a Holocaust remembrance trip.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and you read about it growing up. You see the movies.
Yeah, but there's nothing like being in that environment.
There's nothing.
Yeah, like you can't compare standing on the ground where it happened to what you read in a book or watch on Schindler's List.
Yeah. And I remember, so this, I'm still going through, I call this is a darkness chapter that I'm still like wrestling through because, we went to Auschwitz, we went in the gas chambers, and, you can see the fingernails of people scratching, and I remember this one moment that I think will be with me forever. We were in, imagine a beautiful field, and it just snowed the day before, but today's sunny. And it's in the middle of nowhere, it's in the woods. And you're looking at this beautiful field, and it looks like it could be a kid's soccer field, like that size of and there's just like trees that kind of make like a U, or whatever that is, I guess, and there's this big open space in the middle of it. And there's these trees outlining it. Okay. And the tour guide that we were with was telling us this was a killing field, where they would round up Jews in a different area, put them in the trucks, gas them, take them to this area, and they would throw them in the pits. And if you're still alive, they would shoot you and then throw you in the pits. And he told all of us to stand 10 yards apart from each other, so we all kind of spread out and take a moment, really reflect where you are. And he walked up to me, and he said, "Move your boot against the snow." And against freshly minted snow. So I moved my boot against the snow, and I look down, and I pick up teeth and bones of my aunts and uncles and my brothers and sisters that the Nazis couldn't destroy, that they tried everything to destroy them. And to pick up a tooth and to look at it being like, this person had a story, this was my family member, and the impact they could have had on the world,
Absolutely.
And the fact that they didn't have an ability to do anything, I bawled more than I've ever bawled in my life, and that just shook me to my core. It still shakes me. I'm shaking now talking about it. And the ability to scare yourself and to really find your purpose and your mission is what made me a great communicator, which will make me a very successful entrepreneur, but will make anyone successful whatever they want to be.
Right.
Because I took that moment and I knew and I internalized that I'm going to make sure I'm dedicating my life to stopping anti-Semitism.
Wow.
That was the confirmation of my passion, of my purpose.
That's your purpose.
And so when I talk to someone about our business, sure, I can write you words that's going to convert. But when you pay me money, my money is going to go to APAC. My money is going to go to lobbying DC.
You have causes that you care about, and you're going to put your money behind those causes.
So my energy comes through at a different level now because this is what I know I'm doing.
That's a truly higher level of authenticity.
Yeah. And, I talk about a second chapter, Darkness. I probably cry at least once a week about this. It really there would be moments where I'll just be out in public, like back in 2014 during the first chapter, where I'll just I'll start to forget how to speak again, which scares the shit out of me because I'm going back to that period.
Right.
So it triggers a whole nother set of trauma. But scaring yourself is the best thing you could ever do for yourself because it wakes you up and makes you realize you're part of a team and that you can have such an impact if you know where you are in the world and the impact you can have by believing yourself and attaching to a cause that fires you up more than anything else.
Here's the way I put it. You have 2 lives, and the second one starts when you realize you have one.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Because at the end of the day, we're called to something. For me, it's my family is primary to me. That's like the pinnacle of everything that everything I do is for my family, with an understanding that I want today to be better than yesterday, but not as good as tomorrow. Yeah. For not just me, but also for the people I love, the people I care about. So the way I look at it is my family first, my network of friends that I also consider family, my business, the constituents of my business, and the community and causes I care about. And you've found your purpose, and you use that as your tool to getting what you need to get done. That's amazing. I love this story.
Thank you.
So you're called on this mission to have a greater impact, because it's going to be able to then impact the things you care about.
Correct.
What is your day-to-day like today? Like what's the business like today? What are you doing day in and day out to serve the community? To serve your community who you help.
So I'll talk the business side, then I'll talk the other side. So on the business side, my role is connecting with people, bringing in new traffic to the business, bringing new sales. And so I'm constantly spending my days taking people out to breakfast or lunch or dinners, things I love. We cold pitch like 200 people a month. We're about to double that and triple that.
Wow, wait a minute. Okay.
The masters of cold outreach.
That is huge. You cold pitch 200 people per month?
Yeah, and I need it to be more. It needs to be more. So
how are you going to do that? Like, how can tell me what a cold pitch is for you. Like, help me to understand that.
So I basically make something for them, but they don't know me. And so I'm reaching out to them and say, hey, here's how I can help you. And
so you're giving value before you even met them.
Correct.
I love that.
Yeah.
How do you have time to do that, though?
I really try to systematize my day as best as I can. So I have my VA who's phenomenal. Both my VAs are incredible. They are really dialed in, and they know exactly what their role is. I know what my role is. And so I spend my days creating new videos for them, finding the information for us to reach out to.
Again, let's make sure we're unpacking it for everyone to understand. When you say you're creating videos for your VAs, are you talking about instructional videos?
So I have SOPs for them.
Standard operating procedures.
Yeah, thank you. That was going to be a tongue twister for
me.
No worries. I have SOPs for them. Okay. I find them the profile. So, because I realize their strength is they're really good at their zone of genius, which is either sending out the message or creating the video itself.
Okay.
I'm very good at knowing the avatar that we want to work with.
Okay.
So I rather spend my time finding them the people, sending it over to them, and then they're the ones putting together the video, which is our value video.
Okay.
And then they send out the messages, and I take the sales calls.
So they're sending out the value video for the recipient.
Correct.
So the business owner, if you will, that you're reaching out to, they get this piece of valuable content that they theoretically they could just go use.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm sure some of them actually do. Yeah. Probably go out and use it. What your process of doing that? Like, what is that like? Like you actually record something yourself? Like what is that piece of content?
So it's a video that breaks down how I can improve their sales page and their emails and their text messages. And I basically say, utilize this if you want or don't. It's completely up to you. Wow. But if you want to talk to us, happy to show you how to actually put this into practice.
So it's instructional, it's educational content,
yes,
but specific to them.
Yes.
So you've done research on them. So you're spending time to research the avatar, or not an avatar, an actual prospect.
Yeah.
Creating content for them to help them improve what they're doing, and then cold sending it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we do that, and I'm going to ramp it up to 400 and 600. That's the next levels of it. As we're refining our offer.
I would imagine then you're trying to leverage and duplicate yourself, because physically you can't handle doing that yourself.
So we're bringing on setters.
Okay.
And we're paying for people. Setters is someone that will book the call on my calendar. And I'm paying them as a closer, somebody that actually takes a sales call, because I want them to know they can grow with us.
Okay.
Then they're going to send out 50 a week, so that's where the other 200 comes from.
Okay.
And so now we're at 400. And then when that person's doing it well, we'll bring on a second one. That's how we double up again and continue to just grow and grow. Because the offer is being refined, and the offer is pretty well dialed in.
Okay.
I just don't have enough time to reach out to everyone.
Okay.
So that's why I have my process for me to get it down with my key performance indicators that I need. Let me teach it to somebody else.
And your business partner is still the one who's on the back end doing a lot of fulfillment.
Yeah. So John does a lot of the strategy and tying in everything, because John himself is a best-selling author that he's written for his own book and 5 other books that became bestsellers. So he's a true wordsmith. Okay. And Yogev is a fantastic writer himself. One day he'll write a bestseller book. But they're the ones that then actually like create everything. I'm driving in the business, as well as I probably go to one conference every 6 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Okay. Are you doing the conferences for learning or networking or both?
Both.
Or? Okay.
So I've now learned to I pay for VIP at conferences because I want to be in those rooms.
Yes.
Because I know our average deal size could be $16,000 to $75,000 depending on it.
Right.
If I pay $2,000 to be there, it pays for
a
itself.
no-brainer. Yeah. And I think that's another thing that a lot of business owners struggle with is investing in opportunity. Yeah. A lot of there's this mindset that again, a lot of business owners, especially in the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey, you'll start off by trying to save money by investing time, doing more of the work yourself, whereas the actual positive result comes from investing money to buy back time. Yeah. Because the more time you have to work on the business rather than in it, the more opportunity you have for growth. When you look at where you are right now with your business itself, what would you say the biggest challenges at the moment?
Ooh, that is a good question. Mindset is still such a challenge because I still wake up with days of it's going to crumble. It's going to be over. Mindset's one. So always working on that, always working on perspective. Okay. Number 2, duplicating yourself. What you're a master at with having other people that are just as effective as you. And then 3, of just letting go. And I know that's for me as someone that's I am very type A, if you
I've noticed.
And very, very structured, very detailed, and I want things to be done a certain way. I recently invested in somebody we were talking about this yesterday, somebody to run an e-commerce store for me. Mm-hmm. I thought their copy was shit. Mm-hmm. But I talked to my mentor and he said, he has a great line. He's like, I rather make money than be right.
Yes.
That's all he had to say to me.
100%.
I was like, fine, all right, cool. I'm going to let them do their thing, and then later on, whatever. But
you can always refine and fine-tune.
So,
but you don't want to necessarily reinvent the wheel. No. And you also don't want to invest too much time and effort for perfection when reasonable is still valuable.
So the letting go part, and I learned this from when I was doing sales at APAC, is having confidence that if I hit my KPIs, I will most likely hit my revenue target. Okay. Because entrepreneurship is so unpredictable, but I at least can control my variables. And that gave me freedom of being like, if I do my thing every single day, eventually I'll hit my goal. Whether it's a year later, 2 years later, that's fine, but I know I'm going to be okay.
Let's talk about that for a second. KPI, your key performance indicators. What are your key performance indicators?
So for me, it's 200 cold outreaches. Okay. I want to sign 4 clients a month, and our deal size is larger, and so it doesn't. That sales cycle can take a little bit longer. I want to go take out 2 people a week for breakfast or coffees to build that relationship, and go to about 2 conferences a quarter.
Okay. And what do you think is holding you back from hitting your KPIs at the moment? Is there, besides mindset, is there anything logistical that's being a challenge, current human resources needs and constraints?
It's definitely bringing on more setters to help me in that process. Okay. I would say it's trusting the process. So I now take the time to re-listen to all my sales calls, which I'm so mad at myself I didn't do earlier. It's like, this is sales 101. To hear why that person didn't buy, and then shift the offer to make it easier for the next person to buy. Okay. So we're doing a lot of offer refinement right now.
And what is your offer at the moment?
So our offer now is we'll go to someone that's doing at least $75K a month and above and say, you have an abundance of leads, but they're not converting to the highest degree. Let us rewrite your sales pages, your landers, your emails, and your SMS, because I guarantee there's at least $50,000 in your database right now. They're not buying from you because they're not connected to you. And there's a disconnect in what they see in the front end, your ads, to what they see in the follow-up. And a lot of those people that don't have a lead gen problem, they have a conversion problem. They're like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you're essentially doing on the sales side of the spectrum what I do on the finance side of the spectrum. You're plugging the profit leaks.
Exactly.
You're essentially jumping in and saying, okay, there's money here. You're allowing the money to just fall through the holes that are in your business. The hole specifically you're doing is the follow-up is not there, the conversion is not there, and the significant component of that is just the copy.
Exactly. Okay. And because when I realized, and now I tell them, you can have a year's long of follow-up. It does not take long for us to build out. That means for a year, you don't have to worry about that person going through your funnel and like what happens if they don't buy in the first month. You can follow them up consensually for a whole year, knowing that person's gonna buy.
Right.
You don't have to worry about that. So your ad costs go down. You know that they're safe and secure in your funnel, and you know that that person eventually will become a client, and you can focus on your zone of genius, which could be front end or creating content, because you know that person, when they're in your funnel, they're gonna feel like they're talking to you for a year until they're ready to buy.
So these are individuals now that you're helping. They're earning somewhere between $75,000 a month to millions of dollars per month. What do you say to the entrepreneurs that aren't at that level yet? Like, let's say they're earning $50,000 to $25,000 a month. Like, what are the things that they should be focusing on from a copy standpoint that can add value to what they're doing?
So my favorite tactic, tip, whatever, to tell people, I want you to take any recorded sales call that you've ever had. I want you to upload it to otter.ai.
Otter.ai?
Yeah, otter.ai. Okay. I'm not a sponsor. I do like Otter. And then they'll transcribe it word for word.
Okay.
You get to see the exact words that the person is using.
Okay.
Their hopes, their fears, their dreams. So I tell them, great, get 3 highlighters, mark like green for hopes, blue for dreams, and then anything that's like money related, put in red, or like objections, right?
Okay.
Then you take that, you put it in another Google Doc, and now you have a running list of what people that you've spoke to have said, their hopes, their dreams, their fears, their objections. You go look at that list before you ever write another piece of copy again, because you don't have to guess.
Right.
You went on 15 sales calls, use those 15, like what those 15 people told you. They're going to tell you exactly how to sell to them.
Okay, so again, unpacking that.
Yeah.
The first step is to record your sales call.
Yeah.
Because there's tons of business owners that do not do that at all.
Blows my mind. Okay. I was one of those people for a while.
I was definitely one of those people for a long time. And I think there's a hesitation to do that because some business owners don't want to know where they're making the mistake. Have you ever run into that?
Oh,
where they're just not willing to know, like learn, hey, this is how I fix it? Yeah. What do you say to that type of business owner? Like, what would your advice be to that person?
If it's a harsh advice, it's like, do you enjoy making the money you're making now, or do you want to make more? If it's a more softer advice of like, how do you think you get better? Practice makes perfect. And I'll be like, the best athletes and the high performers, they all review their own work. So depending on who I'm talking to.
Okay. I will push back a little bit on what you just said, because I don't agree that practice makes perfect. I think practice renders permanent. So practice renders permanent, but that permanent may not be good.
It's true.
So you have to practice the right things over and over and over again. Yeah. So it's finding out what's right first, then practicing that. Because a lot of people fall into that. I was one of them too. Like, I can remember when I was just getting started out. I started my first financial planning practice back in '98, and I would learn the script and I would say it over and over again, but the script was horrible. It was like a horrible script. I was really good at saying those words, but those words were just, that definitely held me back.
You're right.
So, but looking at the value you add now to the marketplace, where do you see the business going over the course of the next 2 to 5 years?
I see us partnering with large coaching businesses and e-com brands to dial all their back end in. Okay. Because we enjoy our dream scenario is working with like 5 clients and doing, a base and rev share component with them. We're your guys. We're your copywriting team. We don't want to have 1 million clients. We want to just work with brands that we believe in and scale them up and just make sure that their conversions are as high as possible. That's where we love. That's where we thrive.
One of the things I like to say to all the guests that come on here is I like to play a little bit of a sort of like a thought exercise.
Yeah, let's do it.
If if knowing what you know right now, if you were able to go back in time and sit down with the young Brett and have a conversation with him, I'm going to give you the option of choosing what age that is and what area. I'm curious, what would that conversation look like?
Can I talk to different versions of me?
Sure.
Young Brett, when I was 6 years old, had been like, keep the rat tail. You'll eventually become a Jedi. Don't let peer pressure tell you to cut it off. The high school Brett, walk up to the pretty girl. She's most likely going to be interested in talking to you. Don't let fear stop you from doing that, because fear is a huge driver from it. Brett at APAC would be journal more. Write down why you're so passionate about what you're doing, and then write down the systems you took to be very successful, because I wish I had my playbook. I wish I remembered the step-by-step plan that I did at that time to be to be the top fundraiser in my program. Because now I look back, I'm like, what did I say? What did I do?
Right.
So journal often. Depressed Brett, so I guess I skipped a Brett, but depressed Brett, everything's going to be okay. And ask for help sooner. No heroes do it alone. Brett in Poland, so that was last year, Brett. You made the right decision by going to Poland, because I almost didn't go. Like the night before, I almost canceled.
Wow.
Because I knew it was going to be that in COVID, because because you could have been trapped in Poland, and I was like, I don't want to be trapped in Poland. I was like, that just sounds horrible on many levels. But that version of Brett, like I almost canceled because it was scary. You're doing that, but so that version of Brett would be like, do more scary things, which is why when we did that leap of faith thing.
Yes, at the ropes course.
And I came down the first time.
Yes, you had to do it again.
I was so mad at myself.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I went up and did it again.
Yes.
Because do things, especially when you're terrified. And then today, Brett, this morning, Brett, when he was brushing his teeth, meditate more, because this is a long-term game. And let's say that store you bought goes to zero or your business crashes, you're going to be great. Don't worry about it. And you're using this time in your business to master copywriting and sales, because whether Wellspring goes to a $1 billion or you move on to something else when it becomes appropriate, you're mastering skill sets that are going to just allow you to make the impact, which is stopping anti-Semitism, which is what fuels me every day. So that's what I would say to the different versions.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to push you a little bit further.
Let's go deeper.
Now, what I want you to do is I want you to imagine that sitting next to you on the couch is the future version of Brett. And he's here to tell you something today. What does he tell you?
He tells me to push harder, that there's another level that I have not tapped into yet, that it's so close. But like, do you remember the show Dragon Ball Z growing up?
Yes, I do. I remember that one.
And you remember, you would go like this, and you had like the bolt of energy. I feel like, I was telling this to a friend, I feel like I feel the energy running through me. Like I feel like if I look down, I have like these fireballs in my hands, but I don't know how to use my powers.
Yes.
And so I'm just
You're still feeling it out.
Exactly. So he would tell me, push it, and to push harder and to try new things. So he would tell me, again, walk up to that person at the event, or walk up to that girl you're interested in, or make that ask to the client, because every no is going to be closer to one yes. And he's like, you're not getting enough no's. Yes. So he would say, go harder.
You're just one no away.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah. And also he looks jacked. So he's like, the gym's paying off. Yeah. So I'm like, good job.
Good job.
Yeah.
Good job,
like, we did it.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what he would tell me.
I love it.
What about you though? I'm curious your answer.
Oh, okay. So I'd say that if I were to go back in time,
I want to hear back, and I want to hear future.
When I was a little kid, so I grew up in some challenging times. I didn't come from money. My family was definitely challenged. I'd go back to the younger version of myself and say, it's okay, because you can make it through. You just have to do. And that's really what it comes down to, because I believe firmly in the fact that if you look at all the formulas of success, the key ingredient across the board, regardless of what your definition of success is, and with whatever area of life you're talking about success in, the key ingredient is action. Mm-hmm. You have to do. You can't just sit back and let it happen to you. You actually have to motivate and put into the world the action that's going to get the result you want. And then I'd go back to my teenage years, and I'd say that what you're learning right now is going to basically stay with you forever. Because I would say, like, I started my journey in sales actually when I was 13. I got into this door-to-door newspaper subscription sales process.
Oh, wow.
Literally selling newspaper subscriptions door-to-door.
What an experience.
And that's when I learned that I divorce myself from the outcome and marry myself to the process, because that's really where fulfillment comes in. I have no control over the things outside of me. I have 100% control over me and what I'm doing and how I react to things. I didn't know how to phrase it then, but I definitely learned it then. So I would sit back and I'd just say, keep learning. Yeah. You're doing good. Just keep knocking on those doors. Young adult Edward Self. Yeah. I'd say it's okay to fall down. I've definitely fallen down a ton of times in business and in life, and it's never failure unless you fail to get back up.
That is true.
So, and if I were to sit down next to my future self, I'd say my future self would tell me, enjoy it more.
Oh, unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. So I am so focused on the next thing from time to time that I miss what I'm experiencing in the moment. And that's just one of the things I'm actively working on, is just enjoying the moments that I'm in the moment. Like, I'm enjoying this right now because I'm physically present, I'm mentally present, and I'm spiritually present in this moment. And I have to do that more. And that's what my future self would tell me.
Do you mind if I ask you a follow-up to that?
Please.
God forbid you passed away and you're at your funeral. Would you say you've accomplished everything you wanted to accomplish at this stage in your life?
I would say in the moment.
Yeah, in the moment.
Yes. I'm fulfilled in what I've accomplished. But here's the caveat.
Uh-oh.
I am always grateful, but I am never satisfied.
Okay. In
that there's always more. So I think I told you this. I'm part of Russell Brunson's Inner Circle organization. And he did this one hugely impactful thing at a recent mastermind where he had everyone in the audience literally write out our eulogy.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Like, when you were talking about bawling before, like I have not bawled in a long time. I was crying as I was writing this out. My team was there. They're probably watching me cry. Like, they were like looking at me, Edward, what's going on? I'm literally like writing out my eulogy, and I can say that I'm so very proud of where I am right now because I'm proud of who I'm with. Like, I am so in love with my family, and I'm so grateful for having their love. I'm grateful for being able to earn their love continuously, because I think that that's something that a lot of people don't do. Yeah. I think that life in relationships in general, whether you're talking about a romantic relationship, whether you're talking about relationships with business partners, relationships with customers, I don't think we do enough courting. I think we give up on courting too soon. I think courting should be continuous. Because like, think about like the times that you were first dating someone. Like, you did so much more because you were in the process of a courting. And usually relationships break down because the courting stops. Whether you're talking about a romantic relationship or a business relationship, doesn't matter. It's still a relationship. If you do and put in the effort that you would do in the courting process continuously, I think a lot more relationships would last.
So I'm excited when you watch this specific moment back, because your energy changed when you were talking that. Yeah. Your voice cracked a little bit. Like, you felt it more. Yeah. And that, I mean, to tie it into what we were talking about earlier, that when you can operate in your most authentic self, like, that is when you're the most, people just want to be around you.
100%.
Yeah. And you got to figure that out, though. Like, that's the journey. That's the thing I've been trying to think about more and more, is how do I know where my line is to push it far enough over it to be like, okay, now I know this is where I need to be.
Yes.
Because that's where I'll know, like, who is Brett? What's the best version of me? Mm-hmm. And who do I want to be? And that's like the hardest part, breaking that down.
And we're constantly on a journey. And it is a journey.
It's a journey.
We don't have to get to the destination, because at the end of the day, the destination really doesn't matter. Yeah. It's the steps you're taking along the way.
And I also like when you can look back at the people that have done it before you, family generations ago and whatnot, like you're doing it for them.
Oh yeah.
Like for me, again, tying it into my mission, like that tooth of the person who never got a chance to tell their story, like I'm doing it for that person's story.
100%.
I'm doing it for my family. So just if you don't mind if I take you back for one quick second, there's this room in Auschwitz called the Hall of Names. And imagine you're like in this room and there is like these sheets of paper, like literally probably from the bottom of this all the way up to like your height, that long. There is recorded the 6 million names. Wow. And so there was like 18 pages of just Kaufman's, my last name. And not all of them are family members, but like still name, date, where they were from, like where they died. And it's like, oh my God, like these are the people that can't speak for themselves.
Right.
It's like I'm doing it for those people. I'm doing it for like to make sure that their memories are always remembered. And this also just dates back just like from the beginning of when Israel was created, like in the thousands of years ago. It's just when I recognize I'm part of a team, that made things so much easier.
Yeah.
Because I have support. I have my brothers and sisters around me. I can do it with them. It's not just like me on a mission trying to change the world. I have a whole army with me. We can change the world. That was such a huge turning moment for me.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Brett, tell the audience, like, how can they find out more about you? Like, how can they reach out and connect with you? Like, what's the best method for that?
Yeah, so there's a few ways on Instagram. It's just Brett Kaufman 26, BRETTKAUFMAN 26. I can give you also the information. Excellent. Facebook, same, Brett Kaufman, same spelling. And then our email list. So go to We Are Wellspring. So We Are WELLS springmedia.com. Opt into our email list. There you'll get free access to our course, which will teach you how to write converting content. And you'll also get a bunch of great emails about copywriting and email marketing and SMS marketing on how to ensure you are converting your leads.
Wonderful. So guys, if you want content that converts, you definitely want to be reaching out to this guy. Brett, I appreciate you so much for coming on and sharing your story. It's been hugely impactful. I've learned so much more about you, and I'm really grateful that you've been able to do that. I'm so grateful for you just in general. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been great.
Guys, that's been another amazing episode of Entrepreneur Unleashed. If you have enjoyed this, absolutely 100%, you need to hit that subscribe button because you don't want to miss episodes like this because we're dropping them all the time, and you don't want to be the person who says, darn it, I wish I would have seen that. Because just one single thing from each episode, if you can take one teeny tiny thing, it can move the needle for where you want to be in life. And if you're not journeying to up level constantly, all you're doing is staying exactly where you are now. And I don't know about you, but I always want to improve. I wish you well in your journey. This is Edward Collins, once again, signing off. I can't wait to see you on the next episode. Bye for now. Right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, goodness. That was awesome, man.
Wow, guys, that was an amazing episode. I hope you got a lot of value out of it. Before I let you go, though, I need to remind you about our Tax Express class. If you're a business owner in the United States, you're not going to want to miss it. All you need to do is click that link in the description below, and you can learn so much more. But just as a teaser, the strategies that we share in there can help you shave thousands of dollars off of your next tax bill and every tax bill going forward. I can't wait to see you on the inside. Bye for now.